All right, episode 6 coming up with George Solomon. George is a fantastic singer slash entertainer slash show producer and writer as well. He's up here performing with Oh What a Night, a musical tribute to Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons, a show that he's a creator of, one of the creators. And just a fascinating guy. He's been involved with so many things and so many shows from New York to LA and many years on doing his solo show on cruise ships. And it's just a fascinating story. And I hope you enjoy listening to it. Also, I ask if you want to subscribe to In Session with Darren Walters on iTunes. Please do so. Please rate and leave comments. And reach out to me at in Facebook, Darren Walters on Facebook, and Instagram, Darren Walters, and the number 1 is where you find me. And let's get this thing rolling. All right, I'm here with George Solomon. So it's we just finished doing a show with Oh What a Night up in the Walters Theater.
And what a good one it was.
That was fun.
They were a great audience.
That was a fun crowd. George is here performing with Oh What a Night, a musical tribute to Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons. And I guess you could say that, what part would you say you're basically the kind of almost, there's not really a lead singer in this show, but there's a lead spokesman.
I'm
really.
Probably the spokesperson and the one that people keep saying you look like Frankie Valli.
Oh, yeah.
To me. But everybody in our show, as you know, that's what makes our show unique, is that there's no one's playing Frankie Valli.
Yeah.
We all take turns singing leads, so the audience gets to know each individual cast member. And, I love it when people will say, well, he was my favorite. Oh, and then you were my favorite. And then he was my favorite. And so they really get it. Everybody gets a chance to shine in this show.
That's what I like about it, because there's not one single lead and everyone's background. Everyone gets to have their moment.
And when we first started this, our director, Michael Chapman, when we were putting this all together, we really did it for me.
Yeah.
Michael he said, I had been doing my solo show for so long. And Michael said, we should do something different, just have something else in your pocket and in my show, I was singing Sherry. He said, you do Frankie Valli really well. Why don't we do a whole Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons show? And honestly, we didn't even know about Jersey Boys. This was about the same time that was happening. So it really wasn't connected at all at that time. And when we auditioned 3 other guys in Vegas, they were so good. And I said to Michael, I don't want to be just a lead singer with 3 backup. These guys should all sing.
Yeah.
That's why I always say we're not doing an imitation of Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons, because we're all being ourselves and just singing the songs and having fun.
Yeah. It's a great show. Obviously, we've been involved with it here at our theater for 6 years. But when did it start?
It's been 10 years.
It's been 10 already.
10 years ago. It will be 10 years in August.
Yeah. Wow, time flies by.
Yeah, it is August, isn't it? It's 10 years right now.
I know.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, George, I know you've got a great, rich history, and I know there's going to be a lot of people very interested in hearing your backstory and how you got started and that whole thing. And, you're such a great entertainer and great singer. And as soon as, I started doing this podcast and I knew you guys were coming up, I said, I got to interview George. This is going to be, and I'm more fascinated to do this than probably anyone's probably going to, I'm more interested than anyone else, I think.
Wow.
It's going to be interesting. But let's go back to, where'd you grow up?
I grew up back in a little town that very few people know. It is called Monongahela, Pennsylvania. It's a town about 45 minutes south of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So I grew up in that area, and really small town, little Mayberry kind of town, but it was a really nice upbringing. And like you've been singing from the time since you can remember, right? It's always been in your family. It wasn't like that so much in my family. My mother sang in the church choir, and my mother loved to tell the story of when I was born. I was the 6th of 7 children.
Wow.
So she said, but when you were born, you made so many noises and so many faces and were so animated. The nurses were laughing
Oh, wow.
She said the nurses would all look at you and say, look at his faces and look at how he's making. And they said, this boy is going to probably do something in entertainment because he's already entertaining everybody.
Yeah.
So I grew up, as long as I can remember, it's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And in my family, we'd put on shows. My brother and I, we'd get neighborhood kids and we would sing all the oldies for our neighbors would come over. And we'd put together really good shows. And early on, because I had brothers and sisters are older than me,
Yeah.
my sisters Cynthia and Sandra, they loved the Four Seasons. They loved the Beatles and the Supremes. So those 45s were in our house all the time. And in a funny coincidence, right down the street, a little girl moved in and her name was Sherry.
Wow.
And I was 5 and I had such a crush on Sherry.
Yeah.
Sherry Ross. And I would go down to her porch and I'd sit on her steps and I would sing, Sherry, baby. I would sing Sherry to her. And it's funny to me that all these years later, I am still singing Sherry.
Yeah.
And we did a concert in my hometown not long ago and she was right out in the audience.
Oh, isn't that
And
cool?
it was just so cool to sing, look right at her
Yeah.
and sing Sherry to her after all of these years. So yeah, so growing up, we always had the music. Always had the music in our house. And
So you've always been a singer. Do you play any instruments?
I play the drums.
Oh, do you?
I played the drums in school.
Yeah.
And I've never done it professionally since then.
Yeah.
And in doing my show, a lot of people say, at some point you should go back to the drums and play. But it's been so long since I played.
Yeah.
I don't know, did you start with instruments right away?
Yeah, that's what I did first. I was the opposite of everyone else in my family. I didn't sing until much later, but I started violin lessons when I was 4.
Wow.
And then I just kind of picked up different instruments as I went along. But yeah, I had no desire to sing, like at all. And I don't know why. It's one of my biggest regrets. If I would say I have any regrets at all, I wish I'd started singing earlier. I'm a decent, okay singer. I find I'm probably a good harmony singer. I wouldn't consider myself a lead singer. I leave that to my brother and sister, and my mom does a little bit of lead too. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's like I wish I had, because there's something when you start singing young and you develop, your voice, right? I think it's harder. I think you can always pick up an instrument later in years, but once you get older, I think singing is harder.
It does become harder. It
Yeah.
becomes harder even when you've been singing all your life.
Yeah.
The voice changes a little bit as you get older. And it's funny you should say that about yourself, because even though I sang as a kid, I never considered myself a singer.
Yeah.
I always thought I was more of an actor, more of an entertainer.
Yeah.
And when I went right to New York City when I was 17, right out of high school. And it was scary coming from a little place like Monongahela to go right to New York. And my parents were supportive. We didn't have money. I think I went to New York. I probably had $200, period, when I went to New York. That was my graduation money. And they didn't want to stop. They said, look, we'll encourage you. They were scared, but they said, we're not going to stop you. And I started auditioning for things, and I kept getting cast in musicals. I wanted to do plays and things. And I got West Side Story. I got Damn Yankees. I kept getting roles where I had to sing. And I thought, well, if they think I'm good enough to be in these shows as a singer, then that's great. Then that's what I'll do. But even when we're doing our show now, and I'm not putting myself down, but when I'm listening to James and Josh, and I'm hearing those voices come out of them, they're truly blessed with these beautiful instruments where like nothing's ever wrong when they sing, and everything just comes out beautifully.
Oh, that's nice for you to say that for them. But I think it's, you are very much an entertainer as well. You see that, but I think that's an important, obviously, package, right?
Well, singing it's interesting to note that nowadays, I don't want to sound like an old guy when I say that, but singers, it's changed. With shows like American Idol and years ago, Star Search, it turns out that if you're not screaming your lungs out and doing vocal gymnastics, people think you're not a good singer.
Yeah.
When you think about it, Dean Martin or Frank Sinatra wouldn't have gotten past round 1 on American Idol. And you think about the legendary singers, and what good singing to me is someone who really can communicate a lyric.
Yeah.
It's not about how you can. It's not about your vocal gymnastics, on how high you can yell and how much you can throw your voice around. I care more about what the singer is saying than what his instrument is doing.
Yeah, and just being able to connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't connect with, it goes with anything. If you're the drummer or the bass player or the guitar player or the singer, if you don't connect with that person, that all of a sudden that person will just fade away in the background.
Yeah.
And then it just leaves that much room for the person next to him who is, that person who puts everything into it. It makes them shine even more.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all gone to see a show where a singer will come out and it'll be a magnificent voice, and you'll say, wow, that voice is really good. And 7 minutes later, you're kind of done because they're not giving you anything else other than a beautiful instrument. Yeah. And you just say, you want to be entertained more.
Yeah, and I go back to actually Vegas quite a few years ago. I saw Winona doing her Christmas show. I was there, I think for my birthday, and it was one of those, Winona, I would love to see that Christmas show. I left there so depressed and so emotional, but in a really good way. She was just an open book, right? Yeah. It was a different type of entertainment, right? Mm-hmm. Where she wasn't there to, tell you funny jokes or stories or, go out in the audience and do all those things that are entertaining to people. She was just honest and just, as I said, open. Mm-hmm. So she told you about the good stuff and she told you all about the bad stuff in her life. Wow. And then she sang these beautiful Christmas ballads, and she had this awesome gospel quartet with her. And I just sat there and it's like, I didn't know if I wanted to clap or if I wanted to cry. But still to this day, it's one of those
memorable.
Yeah. It's one of those concerts where I said, I wish I could experience that again, because it was whether it's, positive or some other type of emotion that you bring to the audience, it's really important that you deliver something, right? If you don't deliver anything, it's you're dead in the water, right from the beginning.
Yeah, I didn't know. I grew up watching, because I had older brothers and sisters. I grew up watching great entertainers on TV because I saw the Ed Sullivan Show and I saw the Hollywood Palace, and so I'd see people like Sammy Davis Jr. and Pearl Bailey, and even when the Motown years started, and the Supremes were great entertainers, and all the Motown people they all had really good acts. And the first time I saw Sammy Davis live, I just couldn't believe what an entertainer he was. I was very lucky. I got to work with him several times since then. Yeah. But to see him, it's a funny story. I was working on a ship, and a lady came up to me, and this is the truth. She said, "Excuse me, I read in your bio that you worked with Sammy Davis Jr. Is that true?" And I said, "Yes, it is." She said, "Was that before he died?" I said, no, it was after. It was terrible. I had to carry the whole show by myself. But he was an amazing talent. And to me, one of the greatest things, I was doing a show in Las Vegas, and Sammy Davis came backstage, and he was with Berry Gordy Jr., president of Motown. And Sammy came back and he pulled me aside. You talk about a great he pulled me aside and he said, "Kid, you have it. You've got that thing that people really like, and don't ever stop." And I thought, Sammy Davis is telling me this. I mean,
that's amazing.
It was, to me, it was the greatest compliment. And I was truly blessed to get to do some shows with him after that. And when I would come to town, if I would go to see him, he'd always take me back to the dressing room, and he'd sit and he'd chat with me in the back, and would invite me to his home if he was having a little gathering. He just was one of those warm people.
That's amazing. So where were you performing in Vegas at the time when you did that?
I was doing a show called Dream Street. It was way ahead of its time. There had not been a pop rock musical in Vegas. Yeah. This was kind of Rent long before there was Rent. Yeah. It was, and everybody said it would never make it. Vegas was all about feathers and showgirls and Broadway songs, and we had this rock and roll show about a bunch of guys living on a street. Just kind of, it was guys and girls, and the show was called Dream Street, and it was a huge hit, just took off, and then it became the show that everybody wanted to come and see. So we had celebrities there nightly. The people would, because that was the talked about show. So we would Shirley MacLaine was there, and John Travolta was there, and I'll never forget the night. I did a little bit in the show where my character had this fondness for Diana Ross, and in real life, I love her as a performer. She's another person I later got to work with, but at this time I hadn't.
Yeah.
And I had gone to see her perform, and I got backstage to meet her, and I invited her. I said, "Could you please? I'm in Dream Street, across the street here." She was at Caesar's Palace. We were doing this. I said, "I would love it if you would come." And it was her daughter. The next night was her daughter Tracy, who's now on Blackish now, the TV series.
Yeah.
She said, "I would, but I have to fly back east because it's Tracy's birthday, and I wish I could see you, but I just can't." And the next night, I was in the dressing room, and the stagehand came back and said, "George, she's here."
Wow.
And I was just I couldn't believe, because in the show, I did an imitation of Diana Ross.
Yeah.
Not in drag, just I'd sing one of her songs with the voice and looking out there and seeing Diana Ross sitting right there in my eye shot while I was performing for her was just, and that was another dream come true.
Oh, I guess.
Yeah,
That's
really.
amazing. So let's go, before we jump too far ahead, let's go back to, so you were in your hometown performing, doing things with the family and doing all that type of thing.
All
And
the
then-
school plays.
Yeah. And then you moved to New York
Yes.
with $200,
Yeah, it wasn't easy.
I guess.
It really wasn't. I did a lot of odd jobs in the beginning. I kept getting jobs where I played animals. I know that sounds crazy, but my first job, somebody asked me if I could roller skate. It was going to pay $5 an hour.
Yeah.
And I said yes, even though I'm the world's worst on roller skates. I just can't. As a kid, I never even roller skated.
Yeah.
But this was the premiere of the Muppet movie, and they needed people to serve. I had to dress up like Kermit. I had a big frog head on, green tights, and had to skate around serving champagne.
Oh, no way.
And it was, I got caught on a ramp that went right into the ladies' room. I skated right. You should have heard those women scream when this frog came crashing into the ladies' room. I don't even think I got paid for that gig, but I would do a lot of stupid, crazy little odd jobs like that. But then I started getting cast in shows. I mentioned West Side Story.
Yeah. So how did you how was the audition process like then? Did you have an agent or were you?
I did not
no,
at that
you just-
time. It was a cattle call. And
Yeah.
if you don't know what that is, that's when it's in the trade papers and people just show up.
Yeah.
You can go, and there are hundreds of people there. So I was very fortunate to be selected for that show. And then it was at a dinner theater, an Equity Dinner Theater, and they did a series of shows, and that led to Damn Yankees and South Pacific. And then I got a show, a Neil Simon play, Come Blow Your Horn, which was not a musical.
Yeah.
It was a really funny play, and I got a lot of notice from that. And I got a New York Drama Critics Award for that, for playing the younger brother, Buddy,
Yeah.
in that show. And got spotted by some people from the ABC network in New York. And they said, you should go out west. We're doing some pilots, and you'd be really great for some of the new sitcoms and things. So I did. I packed up. I went out to Los Angeles. The
So
pilot,
what age would you have been then?
I would have been 21.
Wow.
I was in New York 3 years.
Yeah.
It was on my 21st birthday I moved out to Los Angeles.
Wow.
Actually, I remember that well. And the pilot they wanted me to do didn't end up selling, and I got a lot of other auditions, but I liked LA, so I stayed
Yeah.
and just continued to audition for things. And then I started getting shows in LA too. I've always been really, really lucky, but I have to tell you, the thing that changed everything, I had been working as a waiter in a restaurant out there, and it was my job, my day job. It was making money for me though. But I was the only waiter there that really was a professional singer, actor. And they changed management, and all the waiters were going to have to be singing waiters. It was all new management. And I thought, oh, this is great. I've got it made. I'm going to be, but they wanted to audition people.
Yeah.
So I had to audition like everybody else. And I didn't make it.
Oh.
I lost. I sang for them, and they said, "No, you're really not right." I thought, I can't believe it. I can't make it as a singing waiter. What? And so I lost that job, and I had it for a year. So I was crushed.
Oh yeah.
'Cause I lost my day job, and I met somebody. I was working out in a gym, and I was chatting with some guy I didn't even really know, and he was telling me about some audition coming up. and it was for a show called Stars on 45. He said, you really should go out for this show. There was a record, Stars on 45, that was a big hit, but they're doing a whole musical about it. I wasn't going to go, but this guy was persistent. And even the morning of the audition, he called and said, "Are you on your way to that audition?" And I said, "No, I'm not." He said, "If you don't go, I'm coming over there. I'm driving you there. You're going to audition for this thing." And I did, and I got the lead.
Wow.
And this was this was like the equivalent of a Broadway show in LA. It was playing at the Huntington Hartford Theater.
Yeah.
And the greatest justice for me, after I got the lead in this show, which was a colossal hit, I went back to the restaurant where I used to work, and I sat there and I was watching the singing waiters doing their thing. And the new managers came up to me and said, "Oh, how's it going? We felt so bad about that, but we just want to see if you're doing okay." And I said, "Yeah, actually, I'm in Stars on 45 now." They said, the show with the Huntington Hartford? Are you in the core? I said, No, I got the lead guy. I'm one of the leads in this show. And they went, "Oh, well, good for you." That was the biggest break of my life, getting fired from that job.
Yeah, it's funny how you can get something that feels so crushing at the time.
Oh my goodness.
And then it leads to, you don't realize at the time, like if you would have stuck with that job,
I would not have gone.
How could that have changed your life?
It completely, because I never took after Stars on 45, that was 1982. I have never taken another job other than entertaining or acting.
Yeah.
So that was the show that changed everything. And I wish I even knew what happened to the guy from the gym to be able to say to him, if it wasn't for your persistence, I would have never gone on this audition. So every time somebody tells me about some devastating blow or being fired from a job or even losing a contract, I say, as cliche as it sounds, you never know why that door closed, because you just don't know what it's going to lead to.
Yeah, it's happened to me a bunch of times where, you kind of finish up with something, or you leave something, or something happens, obviously. And then all of a sudden, once you leave that, bam, all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like almost as if you've announced to the world, "Oh, I'm available now." And then people just perk up for it's just coincidence, I think. But it happens. I don't want to tell anyone just to leave what they're doing, but
no.
But sometimes things happen, and then it happens for the good, even though it seems like it's not a great thing at the time. So
yeah, that was quite a blessing.
So do you remember? Just quickly going back to New York, I've always interesting about auditioning, because I've never auditioned much for anything. I never really was involved in that end of things, but for a short period of time, there's a lady in Toronto that I became friends with, and she owned an agency, and she always wanted me to audition for all this stuff all the time. And every once in a while, I'd audition, but I hated the process. It was just, for me, I was just so used to, well, either you want to hire me or you don't want to hire me, Yeah. That's the world I came from. And you had to go through all these things. And I know there was this big TV commercial they were looking for a fiddle player for. And there was a call, so she had called me, "You got to go in. It's a certain amount of time." So I go in, and so, of course, like 8 of my fiddle buddies were all sitting there in audition to me too. So I did my thing, and they called back and said they want you to audition again. And I was like, "What for?" I said, I'm busy. I'd have to.
It's a callback. That's
good. And I understood it, but it's like, well, they were videotaping it, so have them look at the video. If they don't want me, then that's fine. I don't have time to go all the way back to Toronto and sit and wait. And I was busy, and the girl at the agency just couldn't. I can't believe you're not going to go back. It's a second call. I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry," but I understand that's a whole part of the process. But at that point in my life when I was doing that, I don't remember what I was doing, if I was busy in the studio doing stuff, but it just wasn't in the cards for me to do that. But do you remember what your first audition was when you got to New York?
I think I got the first audition. I think the first audition was for a production of a show called Kiss Me Kate. And I got a good role of Bill Calhoun. I got one of the leads in that show too. It was an equity waiver theater in one of the smaller theaters. But I do remember the audition process, and
was it scary, or is it?
No, it's always scary. It's always you get used to it, and you cover your nerves because you learn that those people who are there, you have to entertain. They see so many people.
Yeah.
And in most cases, they want you to be good. They don't want you to stink.
Yeah.
They want you to be the one they want. So I've always tried to pick an audition song that was really entertaining, so that even if they had their face buried in your resume, that all of a sudden they'd look up and go, oh,
Yeah.
well, this is not just a typical guy standing there singing memory. I always made sure I did something that was really upbeat, fun, that was memorable, and it would always get me a callback.
Do you remember what you used to do?
Yeah, I still do it. I still close my show with it. The song Blue Moon,
Oh yeah.
the rock and roll version, because I would sing all three parts. I'd sing the bass, the ba 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 ba, but then go Blue Moon, you saw me, and then the wee, and I'd run back and forth on the stage, and I'd sing the bass part, then run to the middle part, then run to the side part, and I kept going back and forth with the three different voices.
Yeah.
And I still close my show with that song.
Wasn't that cool?
But when you do that for an audition, they can't help but take notice of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they watch that, and plus they'd hear a vocal range.
Yeah.
And I'd be dancing over. They say that, well, he can move because look how he's dancing. So that song always served me well, and still does. I never get tired of doing it.
That's pretty cool, especially that you end your show with it.
Yeah, I still do.
Yeah.
And I have done enough. People have come to see me. I worked out on ships quite a bit, and if people will tell me if they've seen the show before, they'll be looking. If they remember nothing else, they're going to say that number where you sang all the three parts. Yeah. So I don't know if I'll ever take it out. As long as I can keep doing it, I'll keep doing it.
Well, it's smart, because obviously going in and auditioning and you're getting picked right away, that's, it's something that obviously they saw something in you, and then you were smart to audition with something like that. I think I think people want to go in and they want to impress them with their vocal abilities, and it's so hard to impress people who've seen thousands and thousands of singers.
Right. That's why
how do you stand out from that?
That's why they want to be entertained.
Yeah.
And it's more difficult when they want you to do something, when you're given music in advance and they want you to sing some ballad from their show.
Yeah.
And I think this is just like a cookie cutter. You're going to hear guy after guy after guy after guy sing, Corner of the Sky or whatever the song is.
Yeah.
And to me, that's not an easy way to audition. No. Because then I guess they are looking for you to do something with it that grabs their attention.
Yeah.
But I think, and usually, sometimes after your first audition, like the callback you didn't want to go to. Sometimes once you pass that first hurdle, sometimes in a second audition, they will say, okay, now when you come back, we're going to want you to do this.
Yeah.
To see if you fit the show. When we're auditioning for Oh, What a Night, our Frankie Valli show, we have to hear if people can sing something that's Frankie Valli, if not Frankie Valli-ish.
Yeah.
So we often will give them something from the show to see if they have that feel.
Yeah, I think for some things you certainly can. You'll be able to tell, especially with Frankie Valli. That's pretty specific. You know whether they can have those chops or not.
Right, because a guy can come on and sing a song from Phantom and be amazing.
Yeah.
But he couldn't sing Sherry Baby. It's a whole different style.
Oh yeah, that would be so. So back in LA, you got the big gig there, and you were able to go back to the restaurant and kind of throw it back at them
a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. So
how long that show lasted?
It was specifically only going to be a 4-week run.
Yeah.
And it was filmed for a Universal MCA special. It was shot for that too, and that's the show that led to Dream Street. It was the same cast, the same producers, and we changed the format, made it a rock and roll thing, took it to Las Vegas, and that's the show that became Dream Street. Okay. And that was a really big hit, as I mentioned, and that led to a lot of things. I mentioned Sammy Davis, Berry Gordy, president of Motown, set up some meetings with me and some Motown people in Los Angeles. And I didn't know what to expect. I went into the meeting because I had been one of the creative forces behind Dream Street as well. I did the vocal arrangements. And I went into this meeting with Suzanne DePass, who was president of the production end of Motown. And it turns out they asked me if I would be interested in writing a show for Smokey Robinson. And I thought, no, I'm busy. Of course I want to write. Yeah. Yes, I want. Smokey Robinson. Are you kidding? I said, so I ended up writing a stage show. for Smokey. And it had a lot of collaboration with the Motown people, of course, and with Smokey himself, who was the nicest man on the planet.
Yeah.
He still is.
Yeah.
And he's just a great, great guy. And that led to me working with a lot of the Motown people like Diana Ross and Stevie Wonder and the Four Tops and Martha Reeves and the Vandellas. And even though Aretha Franklin, who we just lost, wasn't on Motown, I got a chance to work with her. She would do a lot of the Motown specials because she was from Detroit. She grew up there. And now that's a woman, you talk about when Aretha sings and does vocal things, it's coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
She's not just throwing her voice around. It's coming from her gut. That I think it's great to be able to sing like that. When Aretha sings like that, or Patti LaBelle sings like that, you believe it's something other than someone saying, "Listen to how I can show off my voice."
Yeah, and they have probably a history in their upbringing that they can pull from and take you from something, right? There's you have to be able to. I always found I used to teach vocal off and on. And because I did so much studio work and I was producing vocals all the time, I thought for some clients, I said, this would be really good if I could bring in some of the new clients and come in and almost treat vocal lessons as a recording session. Mm-hmm. So we'd find music, whether it's original or find tracks for a song they like. And I'd sit in and work them through a vocal session, but really work them. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing, especially for young singers, I found that they had trouble with is being able to connect to the song. They could always sing great. So yeah, you're a great singer. You sound nice. I'm bored.
Right.
So how can we make you go back to something maybe in your life? And some of it would be like 18. There was not a whole lot for them to grab onto, right? So sometimes I'd sit with them and what's the most tragic thing that ever happened to you in your life? And I remember one was like, well, my grandma passed away. Mm-hmm. And I said, all right, I want you to sit here for the next 2 minutes and think about that whole situation, what happened, what you felt like. And you could tell they kind of started to think about that. And I said, if you thought about it, you're kind of in that place. Yeah. And there, this one girl, she could tell she was upset from it. I said, we're going to sing again now. And she sang, and it was like, oh my gosh, there it is.
She connected it to something.
And at that moment, I was like, did you get it? Did you? And she was like, yeah, I felt it. And I know what you mean. Because it's hard to explain it if you have nothing to know how to pull it from. You have to find something in your life or something that you can take yourself to. And like it was really within 5 minutes, she went from one type of singer to the next level. And then she was always able to, after that point, pretty much be able to take herself, she was able to pull more emotion out of singing. And yeah, that's, those big singers like Aretha and that, there's so much soul and so much, they open their mouth and it's like a beam of light that pours out of just everything.
Yes.
And they're able to tap into it and that's what those great singers are.
And then you have the other singers who, like working with Smokey or Diana Ross, who have great voices, but they're not wailing. There's a simplicity in how they sing, but yet you believe every word they're saying. And so it takes all kinds to make great singers. And it's great that you were able to pull that out of the young lady. And
it's a tough thing, I think, for singers to be able to just kind of deliver something. Like I said earlier, it doesn't always have to be happy and positive. It can be, if you sing in a ballad, you want to be able to feel that, emotion in there. And the old school singers, they were
actors.
Yeah.
They were actors too.
Yeah,
they acted the song.
And it's funny that you mentioned that. And obviously working in the theater here at our theater, we see a lot of artists going through all the time. And I find lots of times when we get a group in that's based around people who are musicians, but maybe do acting all the time as well. So maybe, they do different types of musical shows or different that type of thing. They present themselves so much differently than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's for them, it is acting. They're up there and they're acting their part. They've got this experience in acting, and it really does make a difference. I almost lots of times think that a lot of singers, musicians, and that growing up should get into acting for a while and get that side and learn about that and see how they can apply that to doing live shows, like live music shows. It really helps.
Well, Michael Chapman, our director, that's the most important thing he tells anybody in our cast is you've got to tell someone. I don't care, especially, a song like My Eyes Adored You, when you've got to tell someone's got to be in your mind when you're singing that. Put them right in front of you while you're singing that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even matter if it seems like a silly song like Big Girls Don't Cry. There's still a lyric communication going on there.
Yeah.
And Michael is very good about making sure he doesn't let anybody just slide by.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not, when I say brutal, I don't mean abusive. I mean, he'll stay on you.
Yeah.
Until, if he ain't getting it, he's not getting it. And they'll say, it's still not there. You still need to, I don't believe you yet.
Yeah, you have to pull it out of people.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
like you said, if their history is maybe just singing. I know my first association with Michael was he had seen that show in Los Angeles, Stars on 45, but I didn't know him then. And years later, I went to see a show that he was producing and directing because a girlfriend of mine was in it. And I just loved it. It was a musical review of Broadway, of obscure Broadway songs. And it was so good. And I remember saying to her, oh, I'd love to be in something like this. It's so good. And I thought that has to have something to do with your director. This is such a cut above all the other review type things I've seen.
Yeah.
And so I met Michael and he went, oh, you're the guy from Stars on 45. I saw you in that show. And he was like, I thought you were terrific in that show. So I auditioned, and I don't know, technically maybe I was wrong but Michael persisted. He must have had me sing 6-7 different songs and kept redirecting me and he said, I wanted you in this show.
Yeah.
He said, you were going to get it if I had to beat it out of you practically. And he did put me in the show. And I did end up working well in the show. But that's something that you don't get with a lot of directors.
No.
Yeah, he saw something that because fortunately he saw me in performance. And he went, I know you've got this. I know you've got this. And we're not quitting until you have it.
Yeah.
And so that started my association with him, and I've been doing a lot of shows with him ever since.
It's funny how you can, I think, for producers or someone on that end of things, watching and seeing people sing, there's just something, I don't know, I feel when I'm watching, it's a sense whether you know whether you can pull something more from someone or you can't. Because you just get a feeling. Sometimes you just know, okay, that's as good as it's going to get. And you just kind of already know that without pushing someone. But then there's other people you meet and work with, then it's like, I know there's more in there, right? Or there's something, I don't know what that sense is, right? But there's something you can sense from people that, there's something more you can get from them. And obviously Michael's that type of person who can really sense.
He is, and he's done the other thing, like you've said too. We've had someone sing and he'll be polite and be done. And I might be thinking, do you not want them to? He'll say, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And afterwards he'll say, that was it. I knew that was all we were going to get.
Yeah.
And that was. So I guess he's been in the business a very long time, and so you develop a sense for what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah. So, jumping back a little bit, in LA, and moving on to the show in Las Vegas, and meeting all these great people, and doing the show with Smokey.
Smokey, that led to a TV series with Smokey. They were developing a new a variety show, and this was when there weren't variety shows; they were kind of dying out, and it was a new show called the Motown Review, and Smokey Robinson was the host, and I auditioned for that to be a like a Saturday Night Live ensemble. Me and Arsenio Hall were the two regulars.
No way.
On that show. So we did sketch, and there was a production. There were dancers and singers, but we did a lot of sketch comedy on that show. It was on NBC on Friday nights at 9, and that was wonderful for me. That was just such a great time for me, and just to work with all those great celebrities and do sketches and do things. And Arsenio was pretty much starting out too. You know, he was a stand-up comic, and he was a great guy to work with. And we were also writers on the show, so we'd sit in a little room like on the old Dick Van Dyke Show, and we'd be writing our own sketches and writing the monologue for Smokey. And there was a great TV director, Steve Binder, who's been around forever and has directed Elvis and Diana Ross and a lot of the great. I think he directed the old series Hullabaloo. Remember, there was a series in the States that was like one of those music programs, and it was great to work with Steve Binder. I could not have had a better people around me to learn from.
Does that show exist anywhere?
It does not. Well, a friend of mine posted on YouTube. They pop up on YouTube, and a friend surprised me. He put something on YouTube called George Solomon in the 80s.
Yeah.
And if you click on that, there's pieces of the comedy sketches that we did, and I hadn't seen them for years. So I had big hair, I had long hair down to my shoulders back then.
Oh yeah.
And so though you can find stuff like that. And then I got the show, the Chippendales, the male strip club. They got the director of Dream Street. The owner really loved Dream Street and said, I want to do something all new with Chippendale. I want it to be a good show. I don't want it to just be guys taking off their clothes and bumping and grinding. And so he hired our director, Steve Merritt was his name. And Steve came to me and said, they want this great show, and would you like to be the MC? He said, and then maybe sing some songs. So it's not just, and that turned into me being the host for Chippendales, and we did a movie of that as well. Yeah. And that home video is one of those things that got played. So I think I maybe was more known for being the Chippendales host than anything. That was just another one of those crazy things that I fell into.
How long did you do that for?
I did it for about 3 years.
Yeah. Did you travel? Was it stationed?
Yeah. Well, I did the LA club. Yeah. And I was there quite a bit, and then we traveled. We toured Europe. We toured Canada. We went all over the place with that show, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet.
Again, everything. I always tell younger people that I say, do everything you can. You don't have to be so selective. Do anything that gets you out there and gets you in front of an audience that keeps you sharp and keeps you working.
Yeah, because one thing you don't know where it's going to lead you to something else. I mean, doing this one show could all of a sudden you meet someone on the cast or a producer or someone in the audience, and we'll see you, and all of a sudden, bam, you're going and doing something else.
Well, the Chippendales thing was funny because they had an audition. Remember the sitcom Married with Children?
Yeah.
I was up for a part on Married with Children, and the part was that of the host of a male strip club.
Oh, yeah.
And I went in, and as soon as I did my audition, they didn't even have me do a callback. They said, "You're it. That's it. You're it." And they even asked me, they said, "How you nailed that?" And I said, I have to tell you, I'm the host of Chippendales. That's why I nailed it. So you're right. You never know what's going to lead you to. And then they used actual guys from Chippendales, and they ended up using real strippers in that particular episode of Married with Children as well.
Oh, isn't that interesting? So, where'd you find yourself after doing the Chippendales? What age were you at that point? Where you think?
I was, let's see, this is going to give away my age now. The Chippendales, I was probably I was 28.
Yeah.
I was about 28 years old.
Pretty young.
Yeah, I was still a giant. Let's see, so that would make that about 6 years ago now, Darren?
Yeah. Maybe 10. Maybe 10.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you the 10.
Yeah.
But I was doing that, and a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to audition for a cruise ship. And I didn't know they were doing musicals. They were doing Grease, the show Grease. And I didn't know what entertainment on a ship was like, but it was another one of those situations where she dragged me to it. My friend Hillary insisted I go to this audition, and I did. And I got the part of Danny Zuko in Grease. And that started the ships have become an amazing place to play. Anybody who puts down ship entertainment, because really there's no variety. That's where variety artists go to perform now.
Yeah.
And that show led to me having my own show on, I was watching the other, what they call guest entertainers or headliners.
Yeah.
And they would come in and I thought, boy, I could be doing this. I should be doing my own thing. And with Michael Chapman's help, we put together something, and I've had a 20-year run really of performing on ships and in Vegas doing my show. And that's just been and I've met so many talented people, so many talented other guest entertainers that have become lifelong friends of mine. So I think that people are appreciating now the level of entertainment they're getting out on the cruise ships.
Yeah, you learn a lot on there. I mean, that's a tough crowd to play for sometimes.
Well, the only good thing about it is they're not there for the entertainment. They're there for everything. So they come into the showroom and they don't really know what to expect, but that's the great thing. You might see somebody sitting there with their arms folded in the beginning, then the show starts, and all of a sudden they're loosening up and they're laughing. They're like, "Oh, this is good. I like this." And my favorite thing is when I'll have a husband and wife, and the husband will come up to me and he'll be kind of a grumpy old guy, and he'll say, "I didn't want to come to this. My wife dragged me here, but I got to tell you something. I like that show. That was a good show." You think that's when you know you've really got something that they like, because it's something that appeals to everybody. Because some of the husbands are harder to please. It's the wives and girlfriends that want to take them to the shows. And I'll go. I'll stay for maybe 10 minutes. Then I'm probably going back to the casino. But so when you win them over, you've really done a good job.
So when you're in Greece and decided to put together a solo show, how long of a period of time were you on the ship before you decided to, and you headed into the solo land?
3 months.
So not long at all.
No, not long. But I had already done a show in New York. I'd already even played Vegas by myself. So I knew I could do it.
Yeah.
But I learned from watching other entertainers what specifically works on a ship.
Yeah.
You can't just do a self-indulgent thing where you're singing one teary ballad after another because you like it. You have to sing songs people like that still mean something to you.
Yeah.
You got to keep things upbeat. You got to have fun with it. And I tell people all the time, and they say, "How do you put together a good show?" I say, keep it fast, keep it short, keep it sweet. You don't need to do medleys that go on for 15 minutes. Keep the show moving.
Yeah.
Keep it bright. And I had a cruise director who was willing to let me go on, even though I was in the production show. He let me go on one evening and do my show, and it got a very, very big response. And after that, the entertainment manager happened to come and see me and said, "Oh yeah, I'll book you." And her name was Sue Carper, who was with Norwegian Cruise Lines for a long time. And Sue kept me in work for years.
It's funny because I know Sue as well. I met Sue years ago. A good friend of mine, Billy Newdorf, he lives in St. Catharines, just an hour and a half from here. And him and his brothers had a 50s, 60s group called Brotherline, or Jeffrey and the Juniors was their kind of more their traveling name. And I'm not sure how they got connected with Sue, but Sue saw them somewhere, and she booked them on a bunch of cruises. And then I started performing with Billy. He used to go on his own and do some 50s cruises or theme when they had the theme cruises,
like
yeah,
the 60s cruise. Yeah.
So I met her a few times through my friend Billy, and it's funny because I know Michael mentioned Sue a bunch. Say I know exactly who that is, and she loved music and really had a keen sense for.
She really did. And
right
Sue came out to Las Vegas when we premiered "Oh What a Night," and she immediately afterwards said, "I want it."
Yeah.
And so we were working exclusively on Norwegian Cruise Lines for quite a while, doing "Oh What a Night," and it was quite a crowd pleaser there as well.
So when you started doing the solo thing, was it you were on Norwegian most of the time?
I was on Norwegian, but I branched out and I did a lot of Holland America
Yeah.
as well. I did it with Sue's, I was very loyal to Sue Carper because she was great to me. And rather than just taking another line, I called her and talked to her about it. And she said, oh, well, with my blessing, she says, I love having you. She said, anytime you want to work here, you can, but I don't want to stop you from doing so. There was a very nice lady at Holland America, Cheryl Fleur, was booking the acts there, and my agent submitted me, and she booked me right away. So I've had a long history with Holland America as well.
Yeah, and it's great for you because you just hop on and.
Yeah, people don't realize that the guest entertainers are treated well. People like a lot of comedians will make jokes about the cruise ship and then we're staying under, we live under the water and all that. But they really they treat the entertainers well. You always have a nice cabin and you get to do with the past. My friends will say, well, are you calling bingo on your days off? I said, no, I'm working 1 day a week, or maybe two. But if you're on a whole cruise, people say, it must be a lot of hard work. I said, I work 1 night a week.
Yeah.
Because there's a different show in the theater every night. So they really only need you to do your show 1 night. And maybe at the end of the week, they might have a variety show where they'll bring back the headliners to do a little bit more. So it's a really good job.
So did you must have enjoyed the cruising life?
I did. Mm-hmm. I really did enjoy it. It's a good life. Look, what's not to enjoy? You're being paid to be on everybody else's vacation.
Yeah.
And they treat you well and they feed you well. You can go to any restaurant you want and eat. And now when you go back out into the real world and you go to a restaurant and they suddenly set a check down in front of you, you got to pay that bill.
Yeah.
He's like, get me back on a ship where I finish my dinner and get up and just walk out of here. So
obviously you spent a lot of time. What's your favorite place to go?
That's a travel. I'm not the greatest traveler. When I've worked with some of my friends and they want to go do this excursion and they want to visit there. I've never been a good tourist. I love Hawaii. Yeah. We've done a lot of Hawaii. I loved going to Europe. I like being in Greece. I really enjoyed the Orient. I've been to Antarctica. I mean, how many people go to Antarctica? I mean, I've been just about everywhere, but I like this. I can't say for sure, Darren, what was my favorite.
Yeah.
Because I loved so many of them, and I got to bring a lot of friends and family with me on a lot of cruises, and that was special to me. Going to Bethlehem, seeing places that I know my aunts and uncles would have just loved to have seen. Seeing what was supposed to be the manger, the Olive Garden. That how many people get a chance? I mean, people pay a lot of money to go and do these things, and I was very blessed to be able to go and do these things and get paid for it.
Yeah, it is pretty remarkable.
You've done a lot of cruises, haven't you?
I've done a fair amount. Yeah, quite a few.
And your brother organizes groups to go on cruises.
Yeah, he works in the travel industry, and he's done. I don't know how many.
Yeah, I've been on cruises with Bradley where you haven't been there.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah, and I've performed on a lot, and been on a lot. I like them a lot. I think it's a good. What I like about it, my friends who never go on cruises, I think a lot of people have kind of not a misconception about cruising, right? Mm-hmm. And I always tell them, you can make it whatever you want. Most of the time I hear it's like, well, I like to make my own schedule. I don't like to be told that I have to be here or that. So, well, you really don't.
You absolutely don't.
If you want to go on the ship and just sit by the pool for a week or 2 weeks, you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that. I've been on cruises where everybody's off the boat.
I stay on.
Yeah. And it's like, this is the best time to be on the ship because everyone's off. Mm-hmm. So you go by the pool, there's just a few people hanging out. Have a few drinks, and it's not packed full of thousands of people. That's my favorite time on the ship is when everyone's gone.
Mine too. That's why I'll tell I said, I didn't get off the ship this whole cruise. I said, I never left the ship this way. What are you, crazy? I said, no, it was great. I had the gym to myself. I had the restaurants to myself.
Yeah.
There was nobody at the pool.
Especially in the Caribbean, because I find the ports all feel the same to me. There's certain places are different, but certain... it's another island, and
Someone selling T-shirts.
Yeah, it's unless you're going to do excursions where you're going out for the day on something you haven't seen before. Those are, for me, I find I like those every once in a while. But just to get off and to sort of see what's in town, it's the same stores and all these. They have certain particular jewelry stores are always the same, and they, it's all kind of the same. So I find it's nice to kind of just hang out in the ship and relax and
you're right. People don't have to. And I've had people say that very thing. I said, do what you want to do. If you want to participate in activities or go on excursions or play bingo or if you don't want to go to the show, don't go to the show. Although I always encourage people to go.
Yeah.
I think it's, a lot of people will tell me afterwards, they'll say, oh, my friends were telling me about your show last night and I didn't go because, I think it's there for you. And a lot of these shows would cost you a lot of money if you were going to see them in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So go check it out. If you don't like it, no one's gluing you to your seat. If you're really not enjoying it, you can go. But go spend an evening in the theater.
I think cruising, show-wise, it's always up and down for me. I've seen some really great shows, and I've seen some really not so great shows.
Yeah, we all have.
And I think that's, a lot of places are like that. Venues are just happen to be like that. But unfortunately, sometimes you see some of the bad shows and it puts you off to seeing something later in the week, right?
I've had that happen too.
Yeah.
Where
So
people say I went 2 nights and I didn't like either night, so I decided to skip the third night, and that was the night you were on.
Yeah.
And that was the night that people said, oh, you should have gone to that one.
I find a lot of the cruises will push the really good stuff to later in the week. And I always think you should put something really great near the beginning.
Completely agree.
Yeah. And that way people are like, oh, okay, yeah, this is really great. But I find, you get weaker stuff and it gets stronger as you get going. And some, some cruises I've been on, they're packed all the time in the theaters. And, but yeah, it's different. And
I think I'm not going to say, I think it's sad that sometimes now with the cruises, I think they are not trying, they're trying to appeal to a crowd that is not it's not what the audience wants to see.
Yeah.
They're trying to dictate, and I think sometimes the quality is suffering now.
Well, I think in some cases, because I don't know if anyone books a cruise ship because who's performing on the cruise, unless it's a specific music type cruise, right? Where it's a 50s, 60s cruise when there's 60 artists on or something like that. Or there's a small percentage that do, but I don't know how many people look or know even who's going to be on performing before they get on.
They don't know.
It's you're going to show up and whatever's there is there. And
unless the act develops a following.
Yes. I've seen that.
We've had a lot of people with Oh What a Night and even my show who will follow the website and say, I was trying to choose a cruise and you were going to be on this one.
Yeah.
So we couldn't wait to see Oh What a Night again. So that's the one we booked.
Yeah.
So, but those are the people that are looking for what they want to see.
And those people are probably pretty avid cruisers. Mm-hmm. Probably not people who've been going on the ship or cruising for the first or second time.
Right.
They're people who've been on a bunch of cruises, and now that first novelty is over. So now they're a little deeper, right? Now they're, okay, what's the entertainment going to be like? What's the food like? What's the pool like? Those kind of important things that you learn once you cruise. It's different. For me too, it all depends. And then you must have gone through this a million times. The house band always is questionable. Sometimes I've seen fantastic bands, like really, really good. Yeah. And other times it's like, oh gosh, it ruins hard. The shows.
That's the scariest part when you're doing a show with a live band. I've been really fortunate to have some great musicians, and I've had some where it's almost like we were talking about at the first rehearsal. I'll think, and it's not getting better than this.
Yeah,
I can push it and push it and push it and say, this is what it's going to be tonight.
Yeah,
and I'm not going to. And that goes for sound. That goes for lights.
Yeah,
you can ask your sound man over and over again, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And eventually you just say, all right, I know what I'm just going to go out there and I'm doing the best I can with what I do. But I will say, not to dwell on the negative, because I've had some great ones.
Yeah.
I've had great
I've seen some
sound
great
people,
ones, yeah.
lighting people, orchestras behind me that just picked up my show. We rehearsed it down. We were done in an hour, and we went on that night and did the show, and they played it beautifully.
Yeah.
So I give them a lot of credit.
And it's a tough gig because you're lots of times for those guys, they're
playing a different show every night.
Yeah.
One night they're playing a fiddle show. The next night they're playing a rock and roll show.
Yeah.
Then they're playing a classical show. So they have to really know what they're doing.
yeah, and lots of times they're playing music they're not familiar with at all.
Definitely.
Yeah, especially if it's
and the younger people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a younger person's game most of the time for those. But yeah, I've seen some great bands. I know last time I was on a celebrity cruise, the house band was just I wanted to go back just to see the house band.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care who was performing. It was just like I wanted to see that band again because they had a really great drummer and a great horn section, and the horn section all played in tune, and it was really good, and the band really drew me back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the time, a lot of people don't think about that. They don't think that necessarily people know if the band's really great or not so great, or but I know here at the theater, when we have a really good band with an artist, people really notice. It's
oh yeah.
yeah. If it's okay, people don't say anything. It's all okay. Like, it's not people are complaining that the band isn't good, but when they're really good, people really, really knows that it's stellar. So.
And it's not just how they play; it's their enthusiasm too.
Yeah.
You're watching the drummer. You're watching. It's all about their performers too. And I tell my band all the time. I say, guys, remember they're watching you too. So act like you like me. Act like you're. And they'll laugh about that. I say, make sure you're having some fun up there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of artists who are afraid of that too. I know there's a lot of big stars who don't want their band. They want them to be just don't just stay still.
The more they're into it,
yeah.
the more the audience is into it, the
I
more
agree with
fun
that.
I have
Yeah.
with them. I play with them. I can chat with them and do things with them, and they're all part of the show.
Yeah, and it's amazing too, which as an audience member, if you're watching an artist, you are watching everything,
Mm-hmm.
whether people on stage think it or not. So you could be. I always find it's difficult when you see artists where the band's talking back and forth in between songs, or creating, making yourself look somewhere else besides the artist that's talking. Or there's so many of those little type of things that happen, or everyone's drinking water in between.
Yeah, that's
all that stuff where it's it's really takes away, because you see everything. As soon as you see someone move and it catches your
Absolutely.
eye, it's so important that those people really, they have to think that they're just as important as the lead person and shouldn't be doing anything different than they're doing, because everyone notices everything.
I saw a drummer open a paperback while the artist was talking.
Oh yeah.
And start reading his paperback. And afterwards, I had to go back to their conductor and said, "You can't let that happen."
Yeah.
I said, as an audience member, I'm watching him reading a book.
Yeah.
While in between songs. that's the ultimate boredom for that drummer. And I don't care if he's played the show 100 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in the show. And you're right. It's a distraction. We don't even in our shows with Michael, and you never see us take a swig of water ever on stage.
Yeah.
It's not part. You wouldn't be watching a Broadway show and watch somebody suddenly open up a bottle of water and start drinking it.
No.
We just don't do it.
There's not a good way to do it. I mean, there is no nice looking way to do it. I remember seeing McCartney live, and he sang for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, he does a great show.
And never took a sip of water the whole time.
Right.
The band was, but he, not once did he stop.
And people will notice. I've had people say to me, "Boy, you did that whole thing and you're jumping around." He said, "You never took a single sip of water." I said, "Well, it's the show.
Yeah.
It makes me uncomfortable when people, sometimes I've seen other groups or even tribute shows where there's 4 bottles of water sitting down on the stage.
Yeah.
And they all have their bottles of water and they're picking them up and they're swigging in between songs. That's not a show to the audience. It's maybe it's old school, but I don't think it's a good look.
Yeah, I agree with that too. It's a hard thing to get across to people. They don't really 100% understand that, but yeah, it's true. It's like when you see a Broadway show, there's no bottles of water sitting.
No, I don't care how long they're singing.
Yeah.
And they could be singing their hearts out and really difficult music, but you don't have the luxury of taking a sip of water.
Yeah.
Just be ready to do your show.
So how far in? So you were doing the solo thing on the ship for quite a long time, and so the "Oh What a Night" thing came along. Obviously, really, how did that?
That came along again. It was almost because of something that seemed like it was going to be a negative. There was a period where a lot of the ships were cutting their vocal acts.
Yeah.
When every now and then there were budget cuts, and they said, okay, we're going to start using less vocal acts because we already have a production cast on board. So we have to fill the other nights with comedians, jugglers, rather than hiring another singer or another musical act.
Yeah.
And so I was afraid the work was going to slow down. And that's when Michael said, okay, if it does slow down for you and it stops, you need to have something else in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Let's create something new that you'll be able to do. And this all came about because of Michael actually trying to protect me.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. It didn't end up slowing down for me. I kept working.
Yeah.
I think maybe because my show wasn't just a singing show, there was a lot of comedy in it and a lot of energy. They continued to use me on the ships, but if it wasn't for that work slowdown that we were fearing, I don't think Oh What a Night would have happened.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to put that show together? How long did you work on that?
Amazingly quick.
Yeah.
It was, I think we didn't even work 2 months on Oh What a Night before it was done. I wrote the script. Paul Holmquist did all the choreography. Michael directed it. It all came together. We hired a great cast in Las Vegas right off the bat. It started off as just 4 of us.
Yeah.
And as you know, because it has played so many places, you've probably seen a dozen or so different Oh What a Night guys come
I've probably
through.
seen 20 or 30 maybe, or at least 20 different guys maybe.
Yeah.
And seeing on, being on, I mean, the first time I saw the show was on the Pride of America in Hawaii. And it was one of those things, I think, too, where he's like, well, you just never know who's in the audience, right? So
right.
And I know you guys got a lot of work from different people being on the ship.
Definitely.
But yeah, we had a big group. I think this was the time, through my brother, through his travel company, we did a Walters Family hosted trip to Hawaii. I think we had 550 people that went, and we all went on the Pride of America in Hawaii, and Oh What a Night was on, and I think pretty sure I saw the whole show, and it was really good, and I really enjoyed it. But it was more the reaction I got from everybody else that really double sold it for me, because everyone the next day they were like, "Wow, that show last night."
That makes
fantastic.
you a good producer, Darren.
Yeah,
it really does. That makes you recognized what the people were liking.
Yeah, it was really. I wasn't surprised, but it was one of those things where there was an abundance of people who talked to us the next day and were saying how much they enjoyed that show. And so that's when I reached out and I contacted Michael and I thought this would be a great opportunity to bring this show to our theater, the Walters Theater. And that's 6 years ago, because the thing popped up on my Facebook page the other day.
6 years.
It was 6 years ago, a memory from 6 years ago, and it was this time period. I think it was in August when they came the first time. So yeah, and obviously since then we've done multiple Canadian tours, and
And the new shows.
Yeah, new shows. 4x4 spun off from up here.
Yeah, with the Beatles and the Beach Boys and the Bee Gees and Motown section in that too.
Yeah, because I wanted to keep bringing the show back, but I just couldn't keep bringing it year after year. I didn't want to burn it out, right? And it creates a lot of demand.
It does. Even on the shows tonight, people who have said this is the third or fourth time we've come back to see it, and they are saying, and we want to see you next year. That's the people who, it's like a movie you like. The people who like it will come back. But I understand the need to, you don't want it to burn out. But we have found, we're amazed at the people who come over and over and over again to see this show, or who have traveled to see it, who have actually taken a flight when they saw it was appearing in a theater, close to them.
Yeah, it just proves that it's a well put together show. It's not just about the music. It's about, the choreography is great, singing's great, the writing's great in the show. It's a whole show, and it's entertaining. I don't know how many times I've seen it. The amount of times it's been here, the amount of times on the road, the Christmas shows, probably 300 times maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm still thoroughly entertained.
I am too.
Front to back.
I'm always entertained, and a good reason why that is because of the terrific talent that I have are surrounding me on the stage. It's just so great to work with our current group right now. We have James Bullard here, we have Josh Woody, and Paul Holmquist, the choreographer. And when you can trust those other three people, and you just know, we had a lot of incidences in today's show that were just funny things came up, and these guys, it's like a good tennis game.
Yeah,
they can hit that ball right back. And that's what we had going with the audience today, and it's wonderful to work with people who have such high caliber talent, and it never gets old to me. Not to mention the greatness of the songs. Yeah,
it takes you back to a great time in people's lives.
And those songs were just catchy songs that you could listen to one time and sing the melody in your head. They all told a little story, a little 3-minute story. And we were on the Pride of America once, and a 9-year-old boy came up to us afterwards, and he had tears in his eyes. We said, "What's the matter?" He said, "That song Ragdoll was so sad." And I thought, wow, that 9-year-old boy was listening to that story. When she was just a kid, her clothes were hand-me-down. Somehow that touched him. I think you never know. We talk about communicating a lyric. You never know. And it's the audience they're really in it. And I'm always very grateful for the accolades that we get after the show.
Yeah, it's people always, they freak out over this one. They really, really enjoy it. And we're getting tons of new people. But tons of people, this is our third or fourth time seeing it. I mean, I think a lot of people don't know how many people that actually do this show. You have a large talent pool, because at one time you were on multiple ships at the same time.
Oh yeah, there were times we were playing 6 different casts going at the same time. There'd be 4 on the ship. There'd be 1 playing in New Jersey. There'd be 1 playing here at the Walter. And it was, we had a lot of people working.
Yeah, it's and a neat thing I see is with the multiple different people coming in and out of the show, it brings a little something different.
Definitely.
Every time you see the show, because it's not necessarily the same 4 guys every single time. And I think there's a positive thing to that, where when you have 4 guys, you lock something in really solid, and it stays consistent, and that whole thing. But there's a neat thing when I know when people coming back, it's like all of a sudden there's a new guy in there, and it brings, even though show is it's written, here's the songs, and it's kind of the same thing front to back most of the time. Just changing out one guy can really change the whole dynamics of the whole show, and it's neat because it's like coming to a new show, especially when you have 2 or 3 new guys than the last time you went through. Or I know lots of times we'll be on tour with the show and people come in, is such and such on this trip, and said, no, he's not in this one. They're like, oh, we came just to see him. But when they leave, they're coming up.
They're happy.
They're happy because they didn't think there'd be someone that could be better than this person that they
Everybody
liked.
loves the cast they saw.
Yeah.
And they want to see those four again. But then when they see that's the beauty of the show too, is that we try to make everybody bring something unique to it and different. People are very different. This is my first, even though I'm one of the original guys, I have a lot of your audience members who are seeing me for the first time because it's the first time I've played the Walters Dinner Theater. I did a Canada tour. So I'm like a newcomer to them.
Yeah,
They'll say,
funny.
I saw James and I saw Paul. I never saw you before.
Yeah.
It's but they leave satisfied.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a neat thing with this show, and it's probably unlike most any other shows I've worked with where you can change guys and everyone, there is no lead person, like you said before. So it's, switching people in and out is a really cool thing for the show. It brings different life and for people coming back to see it again. There's just enough different in it that it feels like it's something completely brand new.
And I don't get a chance to see the people doing my part very much, but the few times that I have, I've been amazed. One of our other guys who was doing the spokesperson, Rick, you've worked with a lot.
Yeah.
See, and he brings something different to it. And I think, boy, Rick nails this. How? And I'll be doing the same line and not getting the same reactions. What is Rick doing to get that? I don't have the. I may do other things that are different from him, but everyone brings something to the party, I think.
Yeah, no, it's really neat. I like that aspect of this show. So obviously, we were doing Oh What a Night for a long time, and then 4x4 came along. This is the latest show.
Well, it's not the latest anymore.
No, there's another one coming.
It's coming up.
It's the latest show that's out there that you can actually see.
Right.
The new one's not out there yet, but it's coming. So what was your thoughts on when you guys put that show together? Obviously, it's the music of the Beatles, the Beach Boys,
the Bee Gees,
and
we did a whole
section.
Motown section because we were toying with the idea of just doing, you got the Beatles, the Bee Gees, the Beach Boys, maybe the Temptations, or maybe do the Four Tops, or but we could have just chosen one Motown group and made it, but there was just so much great stuff there that we said, let's just make the fourth section a Motown section.
Yeah.
And it also gave us freedom to do Stevie Wonder and the Temptations and the Four Tops and Smokey and even the Supremes. And the guys play around and they do the Supremes and they do Martha and the Vandellas. And it just added a lot more humor to the show. It was an undertaking because 4x4 is a great show. And it even takes it a step further because the wardrobe, each act is costumed differently.
Yeah.
Even though we're not replicating, you got the suits that remind you of the Beatles. You got the outfits that remind you of the Beach Boys. You got the suits that remind you of the Bee Gees, the Saturday Night Fever period. You got the so look. There's more costume. Even though we change our clothes in Oh What a Night, there's even more costuming. I think
it's more drastic.
Yes.
Different. Yeah.
And the dancing. Paul really stepped up the dancing. We dance a lot in Oh What a Night, but I couldn't even attempt to do 4x4.
It's a real physical show.
They are full out now. When we're casting people, we have to cast dancers. Mm-hmm. We have to get. That's the first thing we want. We have to make sure they can handle the choreography. But again, that'll make the show stand apart from other tribute shows.
Yeah,
it's you got to be a full on singer, dancer, actor to do these shows.
It's funny. I was talking to a couple podcasts ago, Jim Curry, who does the John Denver tribute.
Yes.
We were talking at the beginning. I said, there's certain shows I hate putting the word tribute on because you think of a certain thing when you think tribute. It's not necessarily good because there's too many tribute shows out there. And a lot of them aren't great. But there are a lot of really great ones. And these, Oh What a Night, 4x4, is that thing where I try not to slide tribute in there very often because it's way different than that. It's a show, and it features the music of those artists, but it's certainly not. I wouldn't. You have to kind of put it in tribute land a little bit, but it's always a tough. That tribute word is always a tough word.
It got to be tough on the ships because every lounge had a tribute in it.
Yeah.
And you'd hear the cruise director come on and say, and in the so-and-so lounge, there's a tribute to Billy Joel. And upstairs in the Spinnaker lounge, there's the tribute to the Bee Gees. And down there in the Bliss, you got the Neil Diamond tribute. And on our main stage tonight, we got What a Night tribute to Frankie Valli. And I've even had people who didn't. They said, we saw, we went to the lounge and we saw someone standing and playing and say, we didn't know that yours was going to be any different than that. It's a tribute to everything now. So it's kind of minimized the impact.
Well, there's a testament to this show where a couple years ago we put Oh What a Night in a very large casino here in Ontario, it's Casino Rama, which has every major artist, and Frankie Valli performs there all the time, and big artists there continually, and here we are bringing Oh What a Night in to 5,000 seat performing arts theater, and the shows. If people haven't seen it, it's 4 guys, 4 mics, and there's tracks. And we sat back, Brian Edwards, myself, said, "Well, this is going to be a test for this show to see how it will translate in this venue." Where people have come and seen every big act. Well, people say, how come there's no band? How come, this, or it's just 4 guys? And the show finished, huge standing ovation, and the place went nuts. And even, I think everyone at the venue was like, they trusted Brian and knew we'd always bring in a good show. But for me, that was like the biggest test. It was like, you can throw you guys on, the biggest stage.
With no set. You said four microphone stands.
Yeah,
4 guys,
and it totally killed. And it was, and that's when you know you have a solid show.
Well, Michael Chapman always says a good show will play at Radio City Music Hall or in someone's living room.
Yeah, exactly. Because you could put this show and, we've gone some places where there's no lighting to per se besides turning the lights up. This is the same thing. It's like, well, this is as good as it's going to get tonight, boys. And you turn the lights on, there's not the fancy light show, and people leave. They didn't miss anything.
No.
It's just,
we did this show we've done it on a yacht for people. We did it. Michael Strahan hosted a thing on a yacht where we performed for someone's birthday party. There were 23 people sitting in a living room, and they hired Oh What a Night, and we stood there and we did the entire show for them.
Oh, that's great.
Nonstop all the way through for 23 people, and it played beautifully.
Yeah.
Right there in the living room, the same way as it would in a 5,000 seat theater.
Yeah, because shows nowadays, they rely so much on technology. They need the video, they need the special lighting and the effects. And I feel like a lot of it is just covering up because they can't entertain. And, they're not, a lot of people don't know how to talk in between songs or what to say or entertain people, be comfortable with that. And that's really an old school thing too. I mean, I think that's going away a little bit with a lot of new artists. They just go up there and, they play a song and they finish and people cheer and they go grab a drink and they just start the next song and that's it. I mean, there's no communication with the audience. There's no getting to know them. There's no little stories about this song or any of that stuff. And that's what I love about shows. I want to feel like I've left knowing more about the artist or about whatever the songs they were singing or all that stuff. But I think newer music, it's really getting away from that.
Yeah, it's a whole, and I mentioned the cruise ships now are going that way too. They think that old school is a bad term, and really old school just means good.
Yeah. Well, especially on the ship, right? Because they're not coming in and seeing someone they know in most
Right.
cases. They might know, I've seen the show there before. There might be someone they know, but most cases you're walking in cold to something that you don't know really what it is to some extent, and you don't know the entertainers, and those entertainers have to sell that crowd. They have to perform. If you just go up and play your song and don't say anything and just go to the next song, if you don't know that material, I can imagine how many people have seen Oh Tonight and probably don't really know Frankie Valli music that much.
No,
But
the
by the
younger
time they
ones.
leave, they're like, oh, wow, I didn't, they were thoroughly entertained. You can go to that show and not know Frankie Valli and leave being thoroughly entertained and
Yes,
not
the
knowing
kids.
the yeah.
We'll have kids and teens
Yeah.
who say I knew Grease, and I think I knew Oh What a Night, yeah, but they loved it
Yeah.
because they were entertained by it,
Yeah.
and the songs are catchy too.
Yeah, I think, for cruise ships too, it's not a great idea to kind of follow that new trend, because you really have to find acts that can really perform.
Well,
right?
that's what they're doing, Darren.
Yeah.
they're a lot of them are trying for they feel that a certain audience is dying out and they have to start appealing to. But I think what they're missing, the point is good.
Yeah.
A good show is a good show. And it's going to appeal to everybody if it's a good show. It does not matter the age.
Yeah. Yeah, it's different. Some things it's like before, I think back in the day, there's always great things and there's things that don't work, and that's what kind of carries on too. But yeah, it's a really in a weird area now, I find. And I know even booking for our theater here, it's difficult. It's harder to find just really great shows. There's a lot of shows out there, but to have really great shows, it's fine. It's harder to find.
Yeah, shows that are the complete package.
Yeah. So, at this point in your life, where are you settling into now? Where do you?
I'm just happy. I'm happy that I'm still doing what I love to do.
Yeah.
I try not to have too many expectations. Maybe when I was younger, I had more, maybe too many. I'm just fortunate that I have made my living doing what I love. Years ago, I'd have relatives say, when do you think you're going to really make it? I said, well, you know what? When a carpenter is working all the time as a carpenter, he's making it as a carpenter.
Yeah.
When a realtor is selling houses, I think that with show business, they think if you're not on the cover of People magazine, you haven't made it.
Exactly.
But there are people who are living this profession and working hard and all of their lives and they're making a lot of people happy. That's making it to me. So I'm just feel fortunate for every day. And there's not a day that goes by when I'm on the stage performing that I'm not grateful for that moment. Because I don't want it to go away. I want to be able to keep doing it as long as I can.
I think that's difficult for artists who are so stuck in trying to be famous or be, have that number one song. And the problem with that is, like, once they get there, now it's even harder because now you have to try to sustain that.
It's hard.
So how long can you sustain that for? Because eventually you're going to start dropping down and the next person's going to come up and then you're not as relevant anymore. And that's mentally challenging for a lot of people and career challenging. And I always say, I'd rather be exactly where I am right now and have been for quite a long time. And I'm sure you feel exactly the same way. I prefer not to be that famous person.
Well, when you're on the pedestal, you're an easy target too. When you're up there for people, it's like people will supports the critics will love you. Then they'll become a superstar. Then they're critical of every single thing you do. Yeah, because it's so hard to top yourself.
Yeah, and now you can go, you can go and perform for thousands of people, and you can get up after the show, go have dinner. No one's bugging you. It's not as if you got that whole fame thing. No one's going to be worrying about writing up a review of some strange thing, or you're going to be on the cover of this, or whatever that whole fame thing brings you. You're still experiencing all the same things that those people really want to experience is getting on stage and performing without all the other crap you have to deal with. And I think it's the best position to be in.
It's why you'll hear so many, and again, it sounds cliche, but you've so many superstars who have said some of their happiest times were their beginnings, when they were trying to make it, when they were working towards, and some of their biggest heartaches came after the fame. It's interesting. It's a cliche that fame doesn't always buy happiness. Sometimes it buys just the opposite.
Yeah, and with your show too, you're not dealing with agents and managers and all these other piles of people who look after you, who are all taking a little cut here and there and there.
Mm-hmm. And believe me, the minute you're not relevant anymore, they don't care about you anymore either.
No, it's fascinating. I think your career, which you've done, has been fantastic and really smart, and you can sustain your career for a very, very, very long time. As
long as I can continue, fortunately I'm in good health. I'm in good shape. I can still, I'm still able to sing and dance and move and have good energy. I'd like to keep doing it as long as the people are still enjoying. I think I will know if I get to a point where I say this just isn't good anymore.
Yeah.
I think then I would say, okay, maybe I'll just continue to write and produce. But boy, I sure would miss being on the stage.
Yeah, I could tell from watching.
I love it so much that it's hard for me. It's hard for me to be if I'm off for a week or two, I miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might want a little time off, and then I have a week off. I can't wait I love the schedule here. I like working every day.
Yeah. Me too.
I really like having something to do. I like getting up in front of the audience every day. And the voice gets stronger too, like any muscle.
Yeah. Yeah, I find even just our machine that runs everything here, if you have a day off, it's great because it's like, you need a little bit of recoup time. Mm-hmm. But getting going the next day, even just a day off, it's like getting back on the bike again and trying to get that pedaling back up to speed again. It's one day can throw you, but when you're doing shows back to back to back, you got such a great routine and great practice, and everything starts clicking and everything gets easier, and it's nice to be able to keep doing shows like that.
Yeah, it's like being on tour. It's a grueling schedule for some people, but we're heading back to New Zealand in October, and we'll be working just about 6 nights. 6 nights a week we'll be working with maybe one day off and different venue. I love working here because we're in the same place. We're in the same hotel. We're in the same theater.
Yeah.
And when you're on the road, you're in a different hotel every day. You're in a different theater every night, and there's a fun freshness to it.
Yeah.
But there's something about the familiarity of knowing what you're going to get.
Here it's different. It's interesting. You are in the same spot, but every day's different. I find the crowd's different every day,
Yes, they are.
And it feels like it's a different, even though you're in the same spot. And for me, especially, I find every day's a little different. Sometimes the crowds are, like today's crowd was crazy. Monday's crowd was really crazy too. Tuesday,
a little quieter.
They still love it.
Yeah.
But it's, for me, that's a neat, if they come out of the gate screaming and yelling every single time, there's no challenge there, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you get a day that they dip a little quieter, which is a lot of Canadian audiences are, they're very more reserved. That makes you work harder, and I think that's good. I think you need every once in a while that little push to say, all right, let's give it a little bit more, and by the time the show's done, everyone's on their feet, and you've gotten them to that spot. So.
Well, we had the luxury here of having, I'm not just saying this because you're here, but to have someone who's so talented on working so well for us technically.
Oh, thanks.
It takes away all the worry. Sometimes when you're in a different place and you have different technicians every night and you have to rely on the cue, there's such a weight off the shoulders knowing that the person who's running the show knows what they are doing.
Yeah.
And you and your whole family is just wonderful to us when we're here. It's
Thanks,
just it really makes our jobs so much more fun.
Well, I think it comes from a place of being on the stage ourselves too, right? Mm-hmm. We know what's comfortable for us. So we know how important that is to make that comfortable for the artists that come in. and what that translates into is a really great show. And I think lots of times you don't even realize what you're doing. You're just doing stuff because that's the way you'd want it to be. And I think a lot of tech people have difficulty because they've never been on stage. They've never been the performer. They only see it from a tech end. And, going out and touring and doing a lot of tech, you hear comments from tech guys all the time. And, a lot of them, they're so negative and they're always, it's such a downer vibe from so many of them. Because I think they're not appreciated enough, and they should be, because they're just as much part of the show than anybody else is to some degree. And it's tough because if you can't relate to what's going on stage to what you're doing to help them on stage, and I think being a sound guy or a lighting person or anything like that, you're there assisting the person who's performing on stage. You're there to make sure they sound great, make sure they can hear themselves, make sure that everything looks great, the crowd's getting into it. You're working whatever you can to build that up and help the artists perform the best they can. And I think unless you've been on stage to see what that feels like, it's difficult to translate and make that 100% on the tech end of things. I mean, you can. People are obviously really great at it, but it's a more something different.
And you're right about the technicians can be, when you're touring especially, they may have had an act that was a real pain for them the act before.
Yeah.
And sometimes you go in and you're feeling a vibe from them right away, like they're not going to like you. When you're thinking, don't put the judgment on. We're not going to give you a hard time. And then usually they will warm up when they see the quality of the show and how polite the guys are in the show.
They just want to be treated nicely too. And a lot of times you go in, you hear about, quite often the actor was in there the night before, and they go in with an iron fist and demand this, demand that, and treat people badly. And it's not the way to, because that's what they're talking about the next day. They're not talking about how great the show was. They're talking about how crappy the crew was.
Right.
And that happens a lot. And, it's funny when you travel around to different theaters, there's a different vibe to every crew you go to. And sometimes you can go in and you can tell when you walk in. Usually I tell the tech guys I work with quite a bit, when you go in, it's that first initial meeting with the crew when you come in. That's so important to figure out how your day is going to go. And I think it's important for an actor when they come in and meet the crew. A lot of, and you guys all do this, you go in and you're super nice and shake everyone's hand and say hello and not head right to the dressing room and don't talk to anybody. And I always go in and I always try to have something funny in my back pocket right away. And I'll come in and I'll always have some type of joke or some type of something that I know they're going to laugh and kind of break the ice right away. And I always try to lead with that, and then suss things out, and then okay, let's get to business and let's get this done. And then they're great to work with. Now that they know he's funny, he's going to be great, and now when you say that's not right, we need to do this, they're more willing to change. But if you go in right away with an iron fist and
I've seen acts do it. I've seen acts do it on the ship.
Yeah,
I've had show bands tell me, "Oh my gosh, you should have seen the act we had here last week." Oh, and it's not fun. It's not fun for anybody, and it only put them on edge, and they were afraid through the whole show.
Yeah,
some artists will rule with fear, thinking I'm going to, scare them into doing this exactly the way I want it. That style doesn't work for me. I'd rather them make mistakes and be more comfortable.
Yeah,
because a mistake is over in 2 seconds. And I will tell a band right before every show, I don't care about your mistakes. I care about you enjoying yourself and having a good time during this show.
Yeah, it's super important. And it's I appreciate the comments and it's always nice to hear that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And
yes.
And my goal always is, I always want just everyone. I just want things to go smoothly. And Brian Edwards, my my business partner who I do a lot of shows with and tour with you guys, he always says, we're always talking about people always looking for compliments all the time. They always want to, you guys were great, you're great. And his comment always is, we didn't hire you because we didn't think you were going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
So we already know that, and it's kind of, not that it's expected, but we don't feel like we need to tell you every time that it was fantastic. That's why we hired you, right? But if it goes wrong,
you hear about it.
Yeah, you're going to know about it because we didn't hire you to do something wrong. We just hired you to do something right. But it's a good way to think of things, and thinks if you didn't hear anything, you did your job. You did a great job, and it's always nice to compliment people, but you don't need to do it. Every
the more you're in it,
to hear every single show.
The more you're in it, you learn to you don't need the accolades if you're doing your job. If you're doing your job well, then you did it well.
Yeah.
But it's nice because you better believe, even on it's same. I bring it back to the ships again. If something's wrong, there's one bad comment, you'll hear about it.
Yeah.
There could be 1,500 other people who are on their feet and screaming and cheering, but if one person said, "I didn't like this," someone from the office will inevitably let you know that someone complained about you.
Yeah.
You want to say, "What about the other 1,500 people that loved it?"
I know.
It's just the
That's
nature.
stressful too. I know even here for us, we know people have day after day, people have great times, and it's filling up our seats all the time. It's doing well, but you get one comment that's negative, and it really bothers you. You're just like, why did that happen? And sometimes you notice some people are just hard to get along with. Some people are just bothered by everything, or it could be something that's not remotely even your responsibility. But I know in the cruise ship industry, the comment cards and comments are so crucial to everything they do.
Yes, because so many people will only write the comments about the things they didn't like.
Yeah.
If something bothered them, they want them to know. And I always encourage people, I in every area of life, I say, let them know the positive things too.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to help someone in the long run. That's what's going to help get somebody promoted.
Yeah, we did this not long ago on the show. We were out with What a Night, and they had a substitute lighting person filling in. And the guy was really good. Probably the best guy we had. And, I thanked him. Told him how good he was. And he said, yeah, good. Well, if you ever have a chance to tell anybody on the staff here, because I'm really trying to get in here and work. And it's like, yeah, you bet. So we wrote an email to the theater manager and told him how much we loved this guy. He was great, did a wonderful job. And hopefully when we go back, I'll see if he's got the gig. I'm hoping he does.
I hope he does too.
But those coming from the other end, as someone who works on the other side of theater business, I would like to hear those comments too. If someone does a really excellent job, you need to know that. So I think too, with when you work theaters and you've been in and out of theaters so many times, there's front of house staff, and then there's the crew. Right. So there's always some weird type of separation between the two of them. Either they really talk well with one another, or they don't talk at all. So it's, something can happen backstage and with the crew, and they could be, maybe they're treated you terribly and not really good, but then people up front treated you well. If you don't say anything, then they don't know what's going on back there. And the same vice versa. I think it's always, positive or negative to kind of let everybody know, hey, if something wasn't right there. Most people would just kind of get up and leave, and they would never know. As a theater owner, I'd want to know if someone's not happy with their time in the theater.
Look, we love when the technicians in the front of the house people sometimes they're so great to us, especially your ushers and people, and because they've seen everything.
Yeah.
And when they're really complimenting you, and you think, okay, they've seen a lot of things, and we'll go back to theaters that we've played before, and they'll be so happy that we're there.
Yeah.
They'll remember and they'll say, "Oh, we remember you guys from last year, and we can't wait to see this." And
It's funny with the ushers. That's one big thing I know about with theaters. If I know the ushers are having a great time, you know the show's good. And I've with All What a Night and with 4x4. I don't know how many times we've done shows in Canada, and they've come and left, and ushers are walking out and they're telling us that's the best show we've ever had in here.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. I mean, you look at the rosters that some of these theaters have, and they're big. They've had everybody in there, and they come, and here comes Oh What a Night, and bam, that's their favorite show they've ever seen, and you hear it over and over and over again. So, kudos to you guys for putting together such a good show.
Well, I hope to come back again someday.
Yes. So, new show coming up. Yesterday, once more. It's going to be coming out next year. And so, what are your challenges on this next new show?
The thing that makes this one unique for us is because we're doing the Carpenters and the Mamas and Papas and the Fifth Dimension and ABBA, these are all groups that were men and women.
Yeah.
So even though we've done 4x4 with all men, we've done Oh What a Night with all men, we have a Diana Ross and the Supreme show that's with girls. And this will be our first show where we'll be 2 guys and 2 girls.
Yeah.
So it'll be a nice variety. You get the female voices in there as well, and we'll still present it with the same quality and same style as the other shows, meaning lots of humor, getting to know the individuals. Everybody will be featured, even though maybe like with the Carpenters, you mostly only heard Karen Carpenter's voice. We'll make sure that the guys get heard as well, even if it's a guy singing a song that normally would have been sung by a woman.
Yeah.
You can. Everybody will be featured equally in this show as well.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'm excited to see this one. It's going to be.
Me too. We're in the process of, we have the script done. Paul's working on the choreography already, and we're going to get a really strong cast together and hopefully hit it out of the park with this one as well.
Yeah. I want to ask before we wrap up. I want to ask you. So it's funny today. Was yesterday. You're obviously a fit guy, looks after yourself, and it's funny because people come in and they're like, "Yeah, that guy that in his 30s that came down and
I love
danced
that
in the front row." So what's your regiment? Obviously, you must work out constantly and eat healthy.
I don't.
I'm good genes.
I have very good genes.
Yeah.
My mom, was 95 years old and looked amazing. I work a little bit. I go to the gym. I do go to the gym, but I do a wimpy where I'll be at the gym for 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll do 3 sets of arm curls and 3 sets of chest things and on the machines. And James and Josh in the show, they'll tease me because they're serious. They go to the gym and they're going to work an hour and a half on this. And I've been lucky that I've always been a thin person.
Yeah.
So I think that the muscular just came from being active, and I like to eat. I'm not a heavy meat eater. Can't say I'm a vegetarian because I will. Our producers, directors are vegan, but I don't think you need a lot of meat in your diet.
Yeah.
And I'm not. And as much as I love ice cream, but I can, when I'm home in Los Angeles, I cannot have sweets in my house. I can easily just do without the sweets. Maybe I'll have yogurt that has fruit in it, so I know there's some sugar there. But I don't really. I'm very fortunate. I don't have a great. I can't tell you do this, and you're going to be fit. But when one of your people told me the guy in his 30s, I thought, oh, God bless them for that. It's really nice.
No, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and talking about your career and everything about your life and where you're at. And it's a really interesting story, and you've had a fascinating career so far. Where can people find you on the internet, on social media and that?
Yeah, there's my website is georgesolomon.com.
Yeah.
And there are things around YouTube. You can put George Solomon in YouTube and you'll see, like I said, the funny thing from the 80s. And I think the whole Chippendales movie is on there. And there's I don't even, people will bring these to my attention. People will send me links and say, look at this. And I'll say, wow, I haven't seen that in a long time. And people who are shooting Oh What a Night, even with their little phones, you'll see numbers from Oh What a Night But GeorgeSolomon.com. And I always tell people, we talk about whatanighttribute.com is our website. I'm on Facebook as well. I'm on Instagram.
Yeah.
And we have our producer, Michael Chapman, Paul Holmquist, Chapquist Entertainment, ChapQuist, Chapquist. And chapquist.com, if you go to that website, you'll see all of the shows. You'll see Oh What a Night, 4x4, George Solomon Show, the Diana Ross and the Supremes, yesterday one. You can get a little sample video of all of the shows too, and a lot of bookers go on there and check that out, and they'll contact Michael and say, "Hey, I like this one. I'm interested in booking that show."
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah, this has been a fun chat, and I know you're probably hungry because you haven't eaten since we've done this show.
I had some. See, you talk about food. I had oatmeal this morning at 8:30, and that's been it for me so far.
Yeah, I know, and what is it now? It's
about 1,000 o'clock. I think.
Yeah, 20 after 5. Yeah. So yeah, you need to eat. So thanks again, and once you're listening, I appreciate if you have a chance to subscribe to In Session with Darren Walters. I'm available on iTunes, and if you want to go to my website, DarrenWaltersPodcast.com. When you're on iTunes, please subscribe, as I mentioned, give it a rating, and that helps us move up the ladder in iTunes. And we've got lots more great interviews coming up. I'm very excited about the ones coming up the next few. So stay tuned, and thanks to George once again, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.